This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
We all stood right here and saw what happened to Robert Gibson. He was carried off, obviously with a serious injury, and two-man, Arn Anderson and the world champion Ric Flair, very happy about it.
Tony Schiavone, what you just witnessed is Robert Gibson getting in bed with the big dogs. You understand what I'm saying? It's real easy to come out here and pick your opponents, Gibson. You want to get in bed with the four horsemen, then you got to pay the fiddler. Now, Dusty Rhodes, I want to hit you real hard right now because the bashes are coming up. And you're talking about coming out here and standing women on their head. You're talking about being the dealer. Well, all through tradition, Dusty Rhodes, in order to be the dealer, you got to hold the cards. And as you see, here are the cards, along with Tully Blanchard and the Midnight Express. So you want to be the dealer, Rhodes? Forget about being tough on a local level. Right. Come get the big dogs. That's right.
Boy, Dusty Rhodes is the toughest guy in studio wrestling I've ever seen in my life. You come on here, Big Dust, and tell him how bad you are, that I got to deal with you. Well, this is the dealer. This is the dealer. And it's mine. And little bitty Ricky Morton knows it. And Gibson knows it. Ha, ha, ha. That's right. A lot of guys try to walk the line. And you know what? They get their butt beat. Because when you go to bed with the big boys, you're going to feel some pain in the morning. You understand? Now, Road Warrior Hawk, let me tell you something, buddy. I've walked over better men than you to sidestep a good-looking gal on the way to the restroom. What you don't like about me is that I'm rich. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. You know where you were born? In the gutter. You're trash. You grew up lifting weights while I was whining and dining. Ooh, beautiful women. And let me tell you something, buddy. Listen real close. You are Chicago gutter trash. I am affluent society. We are the world champions. And Hawk, when I see you in Philadelphia, at the 30-minute mark when you're going, please, Nature Boy, finish me off. I can't lift these big arms. And then in the words of the great one, what's causing all this? Woo!
We'll be back right after this.
Place to Be Nation Wrestling Network fans, welcome to episode number 47 of NWA Crock and Roll. I am the host for this evening. I'm in the hot seat. My name is Callum McDougall. Shawn is currently away, getting a well-earned rest after globetrotting to the different Crockett Cup proposed locations, going to see all the bids from the different cities around the world. So Shawn is putting his feet up for these next couple of episodes, but hopefully you'll still be in safe hands with the three remaining horsemen. Joining us tonight, first off, is the co-host of the NWA Saturday Special each and every week on this fine network. It is Dr. G. Dr. G, how are you?
I'm doing great. Shawn always gets the good jobs, though, huh? Gets to check out all the sites, probably having some fun.
I know he's been here, there, and everywhere, taking in all. I mean, he's seen the Sydney Opera House. He's seen Big Ben. He's seen everywhere, and all we've seen is Wahoo McDaniel.
Yeah, he leaves us with Wahoo McDaniel, but But we'll hold down. We'll hold down the fort. I'm sure we'll do a good job. We got a great crew here.
Absolutely. Also holding down the fort with us is a man who, by the time you're listening to this, if you listen to it on the day that drops, could be in a gutter somewhere in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee, as it is SummerSlam weekend. It is Scott Shiflett. Scott, good evening.
This may be my last will and testament, so I just want to get everyone on board with this. And I think it's real rich of Shawn to go globetrotting, and then he still picks somewhere in the United States for the Crockett Cup. I just think he wanted some anytime miles.
Well, yes. I mean, I can't argue with that at all. I think there's been some possibly expenses fraud. Certainly some fraud for his American Airlines loyalty points. But he has been saying that he's been wanting a trip to Baltimore for the current NWA Crockett Cup. So I think there's been a bit of insider trading there. I think you've cottoned on to something.
Yeah, I mean, he goes to Sydney and everything, and then it's just Baltimore, Maryland. It's like, what are we doing? I
know. It's like, of all the places, I mean, Baltimore's probably a very nice place, but surely a wee trip to the other side of the world for us all would have been quite nice. But we'll take that up with him in the coming episodes whenever he shows his face back up around these offices. This episode, number 47, is going to cover the last couple of weeks in May. We're going to start on May 17th, all the way through to the worldwide episode on May the 31st, before moving on to the remainder of May 31st. That was a big day in episode 47. But we start off, as always, with the Roll Call of Champions. Your NWA World's Heavyweight Champion is, of course, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Your US Champion is Magnum TA. Your National Heavyweight Champion is Tully Blanchard, and the World Television Champion is Arn Anderson. Denny Brown is still your World Junior Heavyweight Champion. Midnight Express are still your Tag Team Champions. Your World Six-Man Tag Team Champions are still the Russian team, and Black Bart is still your Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion. So, as we said, we start off this episode with the May the 17th World Championship Wrestling. And we have JJ and Tully coming to the desk to discuss Ronnie Garvin. Tony starts off by asking JJ Dillion about Ron Garvin's hand. JJ tells Tony that all the guys on the other side of the dressing room look up to Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty is trying hard to justify as to why all the hardware is on their side of the dressing room, to the point that the building is tilting, which I think is a fantastic line. JJ believes that the other locker room are so out of ideas that in desperation, Garvin says that he wants to tape Tully's fists in the hopes that Bob Geigel will allow Ron to tape his again. Tully then gives his 2 cents, saying that he's humiliated Dusty Rhodes time and time again, and that he's a professional wrestler and doesn't need his fists taped to win. And that's why he pinned Dusty's shoulders to the mat and tells Dusty to tell all the others that the same will happen to them. JJ closes out by pointing out that the belt that Tully is holding says National Heavyweight Wrestling Champion and not punching or boxing. A pretty good interview from both guys, both getting their points across. And as we've mentioned from a lot of JJ and Tully's interviews, neither of them are lying. They may be potentially stretching the truth, to be fair, but they do make a valid point. So time and again, they're sort of being the textbook heel, where you sort of sympathise with them. But a nice segment to open up the episode. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on it?
You know, I have to say, JJ and Tully, when they do interviews together, there's a connection there because they just really play off each other very well. And like you said, what they're saying is the truth. It's just the way they go about saying it. It sounds heelish, but they're not saying anything that's not true. And that's what's so great about them. And that's why they're such great heels. And I just love the fact that even though JJ's the manager, you know, a lot of times when they had managers, it was to help somebody that wasn't really good on the stick. But when you have a guy that you're managing that's also good on the stick, it's just the way they play off each other is just phenomenal. And you know, I love when they're showing the belt. What does that say on the belt? It doesn't say it doesn't say boxing or whatever, it says wrestling. I just love you just feel it. I just love these interviews. Every time I watch this stuff, And I'm like, wow, that is just what is missing in today's wrestling. Now, again, because we know too much now, it's, we're behind the curtain now more than we ever were. But you just felt like these guys all really hated each other, when they were going against each other. So, again, just another phenomenal interview by Tully and JJ together. And, they're right up there. I mean, the Horsemen, there's not one of them that can't talk. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. JJ and Tully just seem like a match made in heaven as a manager and client. And it's strange that you're right, the Horsemen don't necessarily need a manager because they can all talk, but JJ adds a bit of gravitas to it, and it's quite strange to think that. Imagine, would Tully and JJ even be together if Buddy Landell hadn't flaked out? That could be a sliding doors moment where Tully and JJ never. If Landell can keep his head straight, JJ and Tully don't team up.
You're right, and I think you're absolutely right there. If Buddy Landell was able to keep himself clean and do what he needed to do, would we even have the Horsemen? Think about that.
That's a strange world to live in, where there's a wrestling business that doesn't have the four horsemen in it.
It's true.
Cool. Great stuff. Scott, what are your thoughts on this opening promo?
I agree with what everyone said, but one of my favorite lines was when JJ compared Dusty Rhodes to Helter Skelter and says all the baby faces look up to Dusty. I don't know why, but that just made me laugh so much. And, that is one of the things that, history will look back on, and it haunts Crockett when we get later on, where it's like everything revolves around Dusty, like all the baby faces. But it also like has something good where I've enjoyed in wrestling, and I hope, not to get current, but I hope with the changes that we've seen in WWE that, we go back to thinking all the baby faces are friends and all the heels are bad guys. That's one thing that WCW and Crockett did really well. So I just enjoyed that little moment right there.
Oh, you might get your wish, because you can have all the criticisms of the man personally and his politicking, but one thing that you can't accuse Triple H of having is not having a mind for the business, and he's obviously big Flair fan, so you might get that. You might see some of old school NWA tropes come back into it. Watch this space. We're recording this on quite a big week. So we move on, and we move on to another promo. It is this time Arn Anderson. Now, we've got a couple of promos coming up, should I say. First up, Tony and David are at the podium. They're talking about all the various locations and festivities that are going to go down on the upcoming Great American Bash Tour. And the sheer amount of money that they're throwing at this must be astronomical, as we talked about in our last episode. Arn Anderson then comes out to the desk and hypes up the magnitude of the event once more and gives a recap of the dynasty of the Four Horsemen, discussing the various beatdowns and injuries inflicted on guys like Magnum, Sam Houston, Dusty, and Ricky Morton. He says that the Horsemen warned all of them about what was about to happen, and followed through on that warning, and warns Robert Gibson that he is the next one in line. Arn tells us that everyone is asking sarcastically where the fourth horseman is, and he tells us that the fourth horseman is coming. Arn warns Dusty that at some point in the future, at the horseman's choosing, at some point in the future of the horseman's choosing, in some place of the horseman's choosing, Dusty Rhodes will pay for the damage he caused to the fourth horseman by he and the Road Warriors. A little bit later on, Dusty is out and first says that he saw the James boys leaving the arena as he came in, and that they're like ships passing in the night. He then moves on to Arn's comments from earlier on, saying that it's just a matter of time before Dusty has all the gold around his waist, and then he outright mentions Ole Anderson, whereas Arn sort of went out of his way not to mention him. Dusty turns his attention to Flair, who he says is more concerned with women than he is with wrestling, which echoes a point that I've previously controversially made on this podcast. But he's talking so fast that neither the caption writer nor myself can really keep up. I do make out that he says Baby Doll has something to say, And Baby Doll indeed does have something to say, and she has Jim Cornette in her sights. And she promises James E that by the time the Bash tour ends, she will have embarrassed him, and that is something much worse than beating him. I thought that this was another great Arn interview, but sort of baffled as to why he kept saying the Fourth Horseman and not mentioning Ole Anderson. It made me think at that point I was getting my timelines mixed up, and I thought we were going to get a different Horseman than Ole coming back. It's almost as if they're trying to create some mystery that it might not be Ole by saying he's coming, as opposed to he's coming back. Dusty is the one that mentions Ole. Whether or not he meant it was debatable, given how Arn went out of his way not to mention him, and the fact that Tony Montana must have been doing the rounds backstage with the way that Dusty's promo came out. It was a bit unintelligible at points, but two good interviews to keep all the storylines progressing. Scott, go to you first. What are your thoughts on these couple of interviews?
I thought the Arn promo was great. It was weird that he did not mention Ole, like he said. I loved how he called Ricky Morton a human scab. I laughed way too hard at that. I even have here how he set up the recap of the Dynasty, aka the Horseman. But yeah, it's interesting. And then with the Dusty promo, I have why is he holding Baby Doll like they're going to prom, because that's how he was holding her. And then Baby Doll calling out Cornette, saying she's going to embarrass Cornette at the Bash. So just been setting everything up, and it looks like we might get at least a Baby Doll Cornette encounter. I just thought this was a really good segment, and I agree with you, Callum. I was like, are we getting Lex already in the Horseman? Because he kept saying the fourth one, and it just threw me off as well.
Yeah, I was racking my brains as to who it could be. I thought it was a bit early for Lex. I was even thinking it might have been Barry Windham, but that's still a bit 86 is still a bit too early for Windham as well. So it was a bit strange. I don't know if Dusty maybe called an audible backstage thinking this doesn't really make sense, or he was just too coked up to realise what he was doing and mentioned Ole. But yeah, very, very strange. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on it?
So, what I took of it when Arn was talking or not mentioning Ole was that you see how they're planting the seed for the storyline of them eventually turning on Ole. They're not mentioning him. He's not being mentioned by name by the Horse. It's kind of, I mean, obviously we didn't know that at the time, so I'm not saying like I would have known that at the time, but now because we know what eventually happens, they're kind of planting that seed. I think that's just my opinion. That's why he's being mentioned. And then going to Dusty's interview, it's so funny again, and we've talked about this many times, how they intertwine all these storylines. Like they had to make sure they mentioned the James boys. So the other storyline that kind of Dusty's in. And then, then talking about Arn, like it's just see how they go back and forth to kind of keep the plant seeded into your head of everything that's going on. It's just amazing to me how they were able to, with all the different shows and everything, how they were able, and all the different storylines that, like, Dusty was sometimes in 2 or 3 storylines at a time, how they, keep everything together and keep everything, to where you knew where they were going to kind of go next. I was just amazed. I'm just amazed by that, how the continuity, and I'm sure we're going to find times where the continuity is not there, based on maybe if somebody got hurt or whatever. But I'm just, 2 pretty good interviews. Yeah, Dusty Rhodes sometimes seems like when he talks really fast, he gets a little incoherent. I kind of agree with you. But Arn is just Arn. Arn's his usual great self.
Yeah, I like your thinking about it. Maybe planting the seeds, because we have seen on a couple of occasions the sort of the long-term storytelling that they've been using. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that one.
Arn's agitated.
Mm-hmm.
Where is he now? Come on, come back.
No, I like that. That'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on. And you make an excellent point about how in the time that they've got, they've progress the different storylines. So I'm looking through here. So you've got Arn talking. Arn mentions the Horseman against Magnum and Dusty. You've got the Horsemen against the Rock and Roll Express. You've got Dusty, you've got the James Boys, you've got Dusty against Flair, you've got Baby Doll against Cornette. So in 2 promos, you progress at least 5 different storylines just by mentioning them, and that's excellent use of the time. So thank you for picking up on that. So we move on now to Jimmy Garvin addressing Wahoo McDaniel at the desk. Now, thankfully, Wahoo does not appear in this segment. Garvin is at the desk with a VHS in hand, which is a backup of what we're about to see, which shows the end of that fucking tag match from the last one that caused a rant at the end of our last episode. But admittedly, it is the best bit, where Wahoo gets dropped on his head with the brainbuster on the outside. Garvin says that he had to drop him on his head with the brainbuster on the outside. And he closes out the interview by saying that it's not his fault that he's the best wrestler and the best looking wrestler in the world today. It was a good interview. It was a good Jimmy Garvin interview, but I do still think it is a real waste of Garvin being involved with Wahoo. I can understand it to an extent, because you've got the guy coming into the new territory and he's taking out one of the bigger names in it. But I do feel that it is a waste for Jimmy Garvin, but don't want to keep labouring that point. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on this quick interview?
Jimmy Garvin, he's a good, upper mid card guy that should be put into, should have one of those belts that you could see him being a national champion, a world television champion. Definitely good on the stick. Decent in the ring, nothing wrong. But I agree with you. I hate that, I would never have thought, Wahoo never really did anything for me when I was a kid. Not that I disliked him. He just seemed like so much older, which, compared to today, how old the guys are now that are wrestling, just a different era. I agree with you. I just feel like Jimmy Garvin could be put in a better feud than this. And, I think we're just kind of getting bored of it. I guess it's probably the best word.
Yeah, it's one of these things like you'll know better than me now. World Class had been on national television by this point, had it not?
Yeah. Yes.
So
yes, I believe.
Yeah. So it's not as if people don't know who Jimmy Garvin is.
Right.
So I think it's just he could be doing a lot better as
he does. He has the valet that automatically brings you some heat. Always playing with his hair, and he's the best looking guy around. Like that whole heel way. Do I see him? Did I ever see Jimmy Garvin as being a world champion? No. But definitely an upper mid card kind of guy, just a regular mid card guy, with a mid card, one of the mid card titles, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I could see him come in against Magnum if you think back to the feud that Magnum had with Flair, about how Magnum was the rough and ready biker guy, and Flair was the upmarket suit wearing pretty boy. I think you could sort of rehash that and get Garvin into something a bit better. Again,
Jimmy Garvin could work with just about anyone, just because the heel heat that he creates, people will want to see that match. I think for us, because we've been watching so much stuff, that we're just kind of not feeling it for Wahoo. I'd have to really go back and watch some of his matches from the 70s, and maybe he was much more enjoyable to watch, but I just don't kind of get it. It's kind of been disappointing, actually, because I thought we'd get better matches from him, and he's just, at this point, he's out of his league right now. Well,
yeah, I think we've maybe been soured on him because we've been watching this very specific time scale that he's past his prime. So it might be something. I'm sure Shawn has got something in the pipeline as we're going back to watch some of the matches before our timeline. We might see some good Wahoo stuff, but I'm not necessarily holding my breath on that one. Scott, what is your thoughts on this quick hit from Jimmy Garvin.
Well, I'm always down to see Wahoo take a brain buster on the floor, as I'm sure you were as well, Callum.
Absolutely.
He also, there's no way in hell he would get away with this today when he kept calling Wahoo the Indian when he was talking during this promo. And also at the end, he called out Baby Doll and said that she was a Jezebel. So maybe something starting with her and him and Precious.
Possible, because I think that would be a nice progression if he can get himself into something with Baby Doll.
With Baby Doll and Dusty, perhaps.
Yeah, because it'll move on to something nice, nicer than Wahoo anyway. So as we said at the top of the show, our very own Shawn Kidd has been globetrotting to review some of the proposals from numerous cities, including London, Sydney, Rio de Janeiro, as well as many others. And Tony is joined at the desk by Gary Juster, who is going to announce the host of the 1987 Crockett Cup. Tony hypes the success of the 1986 tournament held at the Superdome, and nothing says success like 3,500 tickets sold in a 73,000-seater stadium. Tony notes that Gary Juster is the youngest promoter in the NWA promoting in the city of Baltimore, which sort of gives away that the 1987 Crockett Cup will be held at the Baltimore Civic Centre. So as Scott says, Shawn's had all expenses paid by Jim Crockett Promotions to go around the world to pick Baltimore. No wonder the Crockett's been out of business. Tony then hypes up the Bash Tour stop at RFK Stadium, which Juster is promoting as well as the upcoming event at the Civic Centre as the interview comes to a close. Fairly standard effort, not much to it other than the big announcement, although Juster seems far more comfortable at the mic than any other Crockett family member not named David. But I am a sucker for this sort of thing on NWA TV, so it gets a big old thumbs up from me. Scott, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm shocked that Shawn wasted all this time and money just to choose Baltimore when it's just a simple day's drive for him. I do enjoy this makes the Crockett Cup seem very important though, because they're hyping it so far in advance, sort of like how WWE does with WrestleMania now. Like we already know either sometimes even before Mania where it's going to happen, so it makes it seem like a big deal, and I very much enjoy that.
Yeah, because it seemed like it was quite a quick turnaround from the press conference to say that the 86 effort was going to be at the Superdome, and now you're giving it a year's advance. So yeah, it does give it that big. It must have been fairly successful for them to run it again and do it and announce it so far in advance. So good luck to them, is all I say, and I'm sure we'll enjoy it when it comes round. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I was thinking that. I was like, wow, kind of how things are done today. They were actually making it seem big, and even though it wasn't as successful as they wanted to, they're going with it. Trying it again and making it seem like this is a very big deal. This is even though Starrcade was kind of their flagship, but they were making this seem just as important as Starrcade. Think about it. And, by making people like, oh, cities are bidding on this and, kind of ahead of its time, if you think about it, because now really that stuff does happen. So,
yeah,
listen, the Crockett messed up during this, in the next couple of years, you will see, but they were a family that promoted for a long time. So, and they were successful. Mm-hmm. So they obviously knew somewhat what they were doing. It's just that they got Jim Crockett got careless with his money, but I like the fact of making it feel big. I kind of remember watching this as a kid. You just felt like this is big. This is big time. The $1 million prize, all that. I like when it just makes you make something feel big and make championships or any kind of tournament means something, that there's actually something you're fighting for. Because I'm not a big tournament guy, but if you make it where it feels very important, there's a big prize attached to it, it makes you want to watch it. And that's what they were trying to do.
And I think they've sort of learned their lesson. As you say, they've been doing this for long enough that they know what to do, but they also are, can learn from their mistakes. And looking at the attendances for the next year's Crockett Cup They do it over 2 nights opposed to the afternoon and the evening, but it's much more in line with what you would think. So they've given it a year's head start to push, saying that this is coming. It's not given a few weeks notice.
Gary wind up working for WCW and wind up I think he still does stuff to this day.
I was going to say, because I did recognise his name. I don't know if he's still working for the WWE or maybe he's in AEW now. But yeah,
right now, if I'm not mistaken, I don't quote me on that, but I know he was working for WCW.
Mm-hmm.
I know Bischoff has mentioned him a bunch, and if I'm not mistaken, he may be actually working for AEW right now.
Yeah, so a guy with that longevity in his career doesn't. You don't get that sort of longevity without knowing what you're doing. So, good luck to him, and we'll see how that goes when we get round to doing April of 1987 at some point, probably in 2025. So that rounds off that edition of World Championship Wrestling. We now move on to the following week, the May 24th episode of Worldwide, with a match for the World Television Championship. It is the Enforcer Arn Anderson against Wahoo McDaniel. So the first match of the episode, and it does unfortunately have to involve Wahoo. Thankfully, the video that we're watching isn't of the best quality, so we might be blessed with not seeing how bad this match could end up being. The match starts off with some arm stalling before he takes the upper hand with some limb work, before that is stopped by Wahoo's first chop of the match and more stalling. Arn signals for a test of strength, but is sucker punched by Wahoo, and then Arn bails to the outside again. Arn locks in a long headlock, which Wahoo struggles to counter out of with a shin breaker, and Wahoo starts to work over Arn's leg. Wahoo's leg work continues for a while before Arn regains the upper hand and locks in a long shin lock. A rest hold less than 5 minutes into the match is always a good sign, and it's a 5-minute match that's also involved a lot of stalling and very little moves, which required a modicum of effort on Wahoo's part. So this is all very telling of how this is going to go. Arn keeps on the offense by stomping away at Wahoo and chokes him on the top rope before locking in another chin lock as Wahoo looks gassed beyond belief. Wahoo knocks Arn down with a big left hand and locks in another headlock. We are about 7 or 8 minutes into this match and Arn locks in the 5th chin lock of this match. Arn goes for the Godbuster, but Wahoo counters into a suplex for a 2 count. Arn kicks out and then rolls to the outside and begins to gesture that he's happy to wait for the time to expire. Obviously, given it's a television title match, it does have the 10-minute time limit. Wahoo gives Arn a stun gun type move onto the top rope as Arn is coming back into the ring before hitting a backbreaker for a 2 count, and Arn yet again rolls out the ring to waste more time. Arn is met with a punch on his way back into the ring, and then Wahoo whips him off the ropes into a big chop, which Arn only escapes at 2 by getting his feet on the ropes. Wahoo continues the offense on Arn and throws him over the top rope for the DQ victory for Wahoo. Oh dear. I didn't get this match at all. It does nothing for Arn to steal retaining the title from Wahoo getting a cheap DQ loss. And he was gesturing he stalled for a lot of the match. He gestured for the clock to run down for the last couple of minutes. I do not understand, but based on our previous discussions, what Wahoo will bring to this promotion in 1986. He's long past his prime, and we had a 10-minute match with almost exclusively stalling for the first 2 minutes, followed by 5 rest holds, or 5 chin locks, and a couple of other rest holds for the remaining 8 minutes. This did nothing for Arn Anderson. It was pointless and a complete waste of our time. I gave this half a star because I cannot bring myself to give Arn a dud because of Wahoo McDaniel. This was horrible. And that felt good. Scott, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%, Kyle. This match sucked. I gave it half a star as well, but Arn did nothing in this match. And it was like Arn, instead of Wahoo working up to Arn's level, Arn worked down to Wahoo's level. And I kind of hate, like, it was okay at first seeing Arn killing the clock as a gimmick, but, like, this is like the third or fourth time we've seen him do this with TV title matches, and it just gets real annoying. And then, like you said, we couldn't get, like, the gourd buster on Wahoo. That probably would have killed Arn, gave him a hernia, or give him the DDT or something. Mm-hmm. But just throwing him over the top rope for, like, a nothing match. I swear, this match felt like it took 20 minutes. It was so bad, I had to stop watching and just, like, go do something else because I was so frustrated by the end of it. I had messaged Shawn and asked him why he was trying to kill me. It's just so bad. Like, Callum with that couldn't even do it justice. He made the match at least seem kind of interesting, but it is horrible.
Yeah, some matches you cannot recommend enough. I just cannot recommend that anyone watch this match. I was the same, Scott. I stopped doing the notes. I stopped watching doing the research for this episode for 3 days after watching this. It was awful.
You're fired up.
I know. I'm meant to be professional tonight as well.
Man.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. G, what are your thoughts on this one?
There's not much more I could say that you guys didn't say. I agree. Scott did great point. I was going to say the same thing that, it seemed like Arn worked down to Wahoo's level. I mean, and this is a guy, again, Wahoo, that's been at this point probably been in the business for at least 20 years. And it's just, I don't know. He's just, like you said, he's just way past his prime. Just did nothing for me. And I'm definitely interested in see what Shawn rated it.
Well, funny you should ask, Dr. G, because I have Shawn's ratings for every match that we've got on these next couple episodes. Do either of you want to hazard a guess now? I will give you it within the nearest half star what Shawn rated this match.
Oh, mine's a half star, by the way. So.
Oh, perfect. We're all in agreement there. So what do you care to hazard a guess what Shawn rated this one?
1.5 stars.
Dr. G?
Something tells me he did like 2 stars or something on this. I don't know why, but...
So we are a consensus at 0.5 star. Shawn gave this one 2 1/4 stars.
Are you shitting me right now?
No. 2.25.
What was he watching?
Stars.
Well, we were not watching the same match.
I don't think we were. He said, his confirmation in this, I asked some of the guys in the Impact chat, so that's the Highway to the Impact Zone guys, to watch it too to make sure I wasn't crazy. So it wasn't just me. You have me seeking confirmation on Wahoo matches now. One of them said 2.5.
Well, they're used to watching TNA, so...
Yeah, well, yes, anything's better than some of the direct they've watched. But Scott, if you're listening, I think that should be validation enough that you should probably cancel Highway to the Impact Zone. Or at least give them a telling.
You're telling me somebody gave 2.5 stars to that?
Mm-hmm. He didn't name names.
What? Either we're messed up or they're. Where do you see 2.5 stars in that? Where do you see 2 stars? 2 and 2.
I don't even see a star.
Nothing happened. Like,
what was that?
When we say, everyone listening, when we say nothing happened in this match, nothing happened other than...
And maybe I need to be drunk when I watch this next time.
I think so. Well, Shawn's obviously just on a high after coming back off of his holiday.
Shawn is pretty close when it comes to rating, but not on this one.
You're talking to someone who gave Magnum and Wahoo in that cage, I think, like 4 stars, and I think Callum nearly had a coronary.
I did. I was ready to pack in though. I was ready to hand in my resignation letter at that point.
But this is a god awful match. Like I would rank it up there as one of the worst matches I've seen. And I watched a Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler match from 2012 where they did nothing for 20 minutes.
We have seen some awful matches on this the journey we've been on this podcast. This is down there with some of the worst. I mean, this might be the worst match we've watched. This is worse than any Valiant match we've seen. This is worse than any of the stuff we saw from Houston.
Match I've seen, because Arn was in it. Like you said, Arn didn't do too much, but it's definitely not. I think we were being nice, but I definitely. How could somebody give it 2.5 stars? I can't get off of that.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again after the episode.
I would no. Don't do that to yourself. Because you'll only just get
why
angry.
would you want to do such a thing? Like,
I may hurt, but I'm just like I'm trying to figure out if I missed something, because I feel like I missed something that I don't know.
The only logical conclusion that I can come to is that we didn't watch the right match. or they haven't been given the right match to watch, because we've obviously all watched the same one, because we've all ranked it at 0.5, and I think we've only given it 0.5. I know, from speaking personally, I've given it 0.5 because I didn't want to give Arn a dud off the basis that he had to work with Wahoo. I didn't want to give Arn a Wahoo dud, but to get over 2 stars, and whoever did 2.5 really does need that. Really does need a talking to.
Wow.
I'm just like, my brain hurts from that. Like it. Whew. They went outside so many times that I thought they were just taking smoke breaks.
And I was listening to thing. I don't know if either of you guys have watched. I've listened to Regal's podcast, but he talked about how he used the time limit to his advantage, and what his thought process on it is, the opponent needs to beat me, I don't need to beat the opponent. So he would just wrestle them and just keep wrestling them until the time limit expired, because he didn't necessarily need to beat them. But Arn stalled, and I don't blame him for stalling, because there is nothing he could have done to salvage this. Anyway, we must move on, because we could talk about this for hours. So we move on to the later on in the day, May 24th, Saturday night, and we open with a promo from the Russian team. Now, the Russians are at the desk with Tony, and for the first time on this podcast, they are no longer the World 6-Man Tag Team Champions. Ivan shouts about the plot against the Russians by Dusty, the Road Warriors, the NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions, saying it's unfair that they put them in a cage match whilst Crusher Khrushchev was injured. But they have a rematch clause, and they will have their rematch within 30 days. Ivan then turns his attention to Magnum TA, saying the delay in getting the contract signed off by the Kremlin was that they wanted to make sure Magnum was a worthy enough opponent for Nikita. Ivan reiterates that they agree to the terms set out by Magnum TA and are actually waiting on Jim Crockett Promotions to give them the press conference that they demanded. David then butts in, confronting Ivan about all the talk that he's done, saying that Nikita can't cut it anymore, and that's why he's delaying with the match, absurdly saying that Nikita is overweight as he stands there in absolutely excellent shape. Ivan says Nikita can beat Magnum at any time, in any place, and Nikita says that he needs to worry less about what Ivan says and more about what Nikita is going to do to him as the interview ends. We then move on to the Road Warriors. The Road Warriors and Paul Ellering are at the podium with their new 6-man tag team title trophy. Ellering goes on about how they'll defend the titles within 30 days before Baby Doll comes out to thank Ellering for throwing an awesome victory party, which, to be fair, must have went well because she still looks as if she's feeling the effects of it. She coaches up to the Road Warriors and tells Jim Cornette to have a good look at the picture because it could be his doomsday in the future. Baby Doll exits stage left by saying that Dusty Rhodes has proclaimed June Kiss a Road Warrior month. Animal repeats Baby Doll's threat before he turns over to Hawk, and they turn their attention to Ric Flair. Hawk tells Flair that soon he will find out how twisted he can be. Hawk continues to ramble on about being from the street and about how Flair isn't that good with the ladies. Two promos that attempt to cover a lot of ground here. They used their time well, but Hawk was a standout poor performer. He kept rambling on with seemingly no idea what to say next. The absurd comment that Nikita is overweight aside, I thought it was very good. Although it was a bit head scratching that Ivan said that the Kremlin wanted to make sure that Magnum was a worthy enough opponent for Nikita, when the whole point is Nikita wants to win the US title, so Magnum must be a worthy enough opponent. But other than that, a couple of slight plot holes aside, and an absurd comment from David Crockett, I thought they were two good enough promos. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, again, here you see the first, the Russian speaking. You're talking about losing the 6-man title, which I hated the trophy thing. I'm glad when they went to championship belts, by the way. But yeah, you're right about. And then they transitioned to the Magnum Nikita feud. And basically, I'm saying the Kremlin wanted to sign off on that. That's just heel heat right there. That's what you're doing. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, obviously they want to win the U.S. belt, so in order to do that, they have to face Magnum TA. But that they're just using some heel heat there. And then the Road Warriors, and then mentioning about Dusty. There is Dusty's in another storyline. And Baby Doll coming out and them talking about partying and Hawk sometimes he always looks like he definitely was taking a lot of stuff back in those days. But yeah, I mean, two good enough promos. Nothing spectacular, but nothing. Again, just keeping all the storylines together. What it was, like 3 storylines right there, just in between those 2 promos. So it's just amazing again how they just kept intertwining everybody, and Dusty always seems to be in the middle of all of it, if you notice. So you can tell he was the booker.
Oh yeah, I mean, what was it that Shawn called him right at the very start? Was it hand in the jar, Dusty? He's always got his hand in the jar somewhere.
Yep.
So some things never change. Scott, what are your thoughts on these 2 promos?
Well, I enjoyed the Koloff promo, and I love how they showed the footage of how the Road Warriors and Dusty beat the Russians for the 6-man tag. Nice little highlight. I haven't seen a rematch will happen, and I haven't seen he was all over the place, but you got the job done because and then Nikita's finishing with saying Magnum will see the real Russian nightmare, which I thought was a very nice line because we know Nikita can't really cut a promo, but if you give him that little sound bite like that, and that's perfect, just saying that he'll see that Russian nightmare. Whew, this Road Warrior promo, I think Hawk must have done a bump before he walked out here because, oh my goodness gracious, Baby Doll coming out and saying the victory party was awesome. It's she doesn't have to be included in everything, but then she somehow was able to call Cornette out in the middle of this promo. The Kiss of Road Warrior month. And then Hawk moves on to Flair, and he says this line where he says Flair only gets girls is because there's a man shortage. I don't think he knows what that means. I don't even know what that means, but I don't think it's an insult. And then he just says stuff about Flair's sexual orientation. That's another line that would not fly today. Yeah, it's like he had 30 seconds of material and they said go cut a promo for 2 minutes because my man was all over the place. But looks like we're gonna have a Flair and Hawk match, which if he can get a working match out of Hawk, then Flair really might be the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I think there's been more than one occasion now that we've seen that Hawk obviously comes out with bullet points, either forgets what his bullet points are or realises halfway through he doesn't have enough bullet points to fill the time. And it just sort of rambles on. I think he's better with the. They've got Paul Ellering standing behind them, and he does barely any talking. So yes, very very strange, and be interesting to see a potential Flair Hawk match down the line, as you say. So we move on to our next match. It is a tag team match pitting Arn Anderson and Ric Flair against Rocky Cornado and the Italian Stallion. A big match here on television with Arn and Flair teaming up. The match begins quite evenly and we see Cornado get the better of Flair for a short period before Flair bails to the outside. Rocky gets a 2 count on a backslide on Flair and the babyfaces get some time to work over Arn's arm, which is a lot harder to say than it is to write it down. Flair and Arn eventually get the momentum and start working over Stallion as David is all somber on the announcing, comparing the beatdown to the Stallion to the one that the Horseman put down on Morton. The Horseman continues to grind Stallion as Flair starts to talk shit to David Crockett from the apron. Flair lays in some chops, but they aren't met with the traditional woos at this point in time, which is very strange to hear in 2022. Flair misses an elbow drop, which allows Carnado to tag in, but Flair meets him before he can make it to the ring, and the Horseman stay in control. Dusty, or somebody in the back, is clearly high on Rocky Carnado, as he is the one that's getting all the good offense on Ric Flair, and he makes the lukewarm tag back to Stallion, who gets the better of Flair momentarily before Flair counters a monkey flip attempt. Flair takes down Stallion with a suplex and locks in the figure 4 leg lock for the win. Flair then gets on the apron and is sarcastically calling out the Rock and Roll Express, and wouldn't you know it, here comes Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, and chaos ensues. The Rock and Roll Express are getting the better of the Horsemen as we go to break, but we come back to see Ricky Morton nursing a bad eye, and Robert Gibson being tended to by some of the face locker room, including Valiant, Jimmy Valiant, Magnum TA, Ronnie Garvin, and of course Wahoo McDaniel, and they all carry an injured Robert Gibson away from the ring. A little bit later on in the night, Arn and Flair are at the podium, proudest punch at what they've just done moments before. Arn tells Robert Gibson that it's easy to pick your opponents, but this is what happens when you want to get involved with the big dogs. He turns his attention to Dusty and the Great American Bash Tour. He says that Dusty calls him the dealer, but it's Arn and Tully who hold all the cards. Arn says that Dusty calls himself the dealer, but it's Arn and Tully that hold all the cards, so he has to come to them. Flair reiterates the dealer metaphor, but in a more coked up fashion, before he starts calling out all of his potential Great American Bash opponents in the form of Ricky Morton and Road Warrior Hawk. Again, all very coked up. I thought this was a good TV match. Both Arn and Flair gave a lot to Carnado, and Stallion was serviceable. An interesting post-match angle, and then your typical Horseman promo that we all know and love. I gave a gentleman's 2 on the match, and I quite enjoyed the promo afterwards, and of course the post match. Scott, we'll go to you first for your thoughts on both the match and the interview at the end.
Yeah, the match. I don't know if that Wahoo match killed everything for me, because I only gave this a star and 3/4. It just didn't really seem like much to me. I thought that Flair was given too much offense, in my opinion. And I have a note here. Why does the Italian Stallion look like Matt Hardy? Flair put on the figure 4 and Stallion just gives up. The post-match was great. And your comment about, I have that written down too, with Arn saying Robert Gibson is in bed with the big dogs now. That's just like, he's so ferocious with it. He's like, yeah, you're playing in the kiddie pool now, and now you're like in the deep end.
Yeah, it was...
But then Arn saying that Dusty isn't tough, and Flair says he's the dealer because he's the champ. And then like Flair calls out Hawk and said that Hawk was born in the gutter and trash. Says Hawk is Chicago gutter trash. And Flair, this little shoot inside comment right here. Flair says Hawk will be unable to breathe at 30-minute mark, and it's like, oh wow, so we're I forgot that I've even written this down, but that's what I said before when I was talking about that Hawk promo. But Flair was letting Hawk have it there,
and quite right so.
Oh, very much so. But it was just like, wow, for him. Like, I'm sure that went over like 99% of the people's heads, but like, because it's not like the Observer was big time yet. This is 1986, so like, they have those other little small, quote unquote dirt sheets, but they would be like, what is he talking about? Not able to breathe at the 30-minute mark. Yikes.
I'm sure the folk that go to the Great American Bash Tour will soon find that out. So good stuff. Reasonably enjoyable match there for Scott. Dr. G, what are your thoughts?
I'd like you. I mean, I gave gentleman's 2 for the match. Scott, I agree with you. Flair did sell, but that's his thing on television. He always kind of sells probably more than he really needs to or should, but that's more just to kind of keep the crowd into it and maybe give the crowd a thing and the people watching at home, could Flair and Arn actually get beat in this match? But you know, in the end, you know, Flair does his thing. I like the post-match stuff. It's funny you're saying that, Scott. There, you know, I think I heard one way. Was it? I don't know if it was Arn that was saying it on a podcast. That, you know, sometimes they did jab each other in their promos. You know, where maybe the average person at home wouldn't know. I mean, obviously the smart fan today would pick up on it, but back then people didn't pick up on it, and it definitely Flair was throwing his jabs. You know, at Hawk in this in that interview. So, you know, it's good stuff. Good catch on your part too, you know, but I think that's just because we're just different types of fans today. We can catch on to those things a little bit more than, you know, I definitely probably didn't catch it when I watched it the first time when I was younger. So, but, you know, pretty good stuff. I mean, I like when you get to see Flair in a TV match in the studio every so often. You know, it kind of makes it feel big. It kind of makes it feel a little different. We get to see the world heavyweight champion. So it was good stuff. I enjoyed it.
Good stuff. Yeah, something novel to something novel to see Ric Flair on Saturday night. Sure enough. So we move on to another interview. Tony is at the podium with Steve Regal, who's making his first appearance on the podcast. Unfortunately, it is the Steve Regal of the Mr. Electricity variety and not the Blue Blood variety. Regal says that he's very grateful to be in the NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions, and saying that he isn't going to boast about being the biggest or the strongest, but he tells us that he's travelled the world mastering his craft. He goes after Magnum TA, the Rock and Roll Express, and the Road Warriors, and goes as far as saying that he isn't scared of the Road Warriors. He says that he doesn't mind who he faces, be it Magnum TA, Dennis Brown, going very formal there, or even teaming with someone to go against the Road Warriors. I love his enthusiasm, but to say that he's going to go against the Road Warriors, you've got to aim high and all that, but realistically, he's not going to get higher than Denny Brown, is he? But all in all, decent enough introductory interview here from Mr. Electricity. So interested to see where this one goes. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on the debut of Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal?
I'm going to be honest with you. I do not remember him being in Crockett. I remember him in the AWA, and obviously I think he and Garvin that were tag team champions together?
Yes, I've just realised now that it's not his first appearance, because we saw he and Garvin beat the Road Warriors, did they not, for the AWA?
Yeah, so but I don't remember him. I mean, I don't think he was there very long. I think he was only there maybe even 6 or 7 months, because I think he went to the WWF afterwards.
Yes.
But yeah, he was mostly used as a jobber, if I remember correctly. But anyway, yeah, I have to be honest, when I saw that, I was like, Steve Regal? I don't remember this. And I truly don't. He's just an introductory promo just to kind of gain a little heat. I mean, it was okay. Nothing to really write home about, but nothing like that was, totally god awful where you're like, okay, why is he on my screen? But I totally did not remember this at all. I have to be honest. I was very shocked when I saw this.
Yeah, I didn't have any knowledge of him ever been in Crockett. I did check up on, because I know him exclusively as an AWA guy.
Down a lot if I probably for the light heavyweight championship, but like at house shows and things like that. But
yeah, I checked up with our good friends at Cage Match, and he's in. I believe he was. They said the matches indicated that he was in the WWF by September or November, so he doesn't last long at all. But hopefully he's here for a good time, if not a long time, and interesting to see where this goes. Scott, what are your thoughts about this introduction to Mr. Electricity?
Oh man, this man. I got real excited. So I was like, I didn't think Steve Regal showed up in WCW Crockett till '93, and I was then disappointed. Mean this in the nicest way possible. He looks like a mechanic. Like, I'm pretty sure I had this guy work on my car before, and then like he started calling out the bad guys. Started calling out baby faces. Then he called out Northern people randomly, which, if you're gonna do that in Crockett, wouldn't that make you a baby face? So he's all over the place. I guess good riddance, since we won't see too much.
I didn't think there was anything. Yeah, good point on the Northern part. I you know what? I did have a little note about that. That would kind of make no sense. But I mean, what I was saying is that I didn't remember him being there, and to me, it's like, who cares? Like, he wasn't bad, but it was like, okay, where did he come from? And I didn't remember him. I think I was just more surprised that he was there. Maybe I got caught up in that moment because I did not remember him being in Crockett at all. But obviously, he didn't make that much of an impact then.
No, I would have died on the hill of Steve Regal never turned up in Crockett. I'm still not convinced, and I've seen his interview. So yes, mixed reviews on the Steve Regal's debut on Jim Crockett Promotions television. But we now move on to the May 31st Worldwide, which will be the last Jim Crockett Promotions action of this episode. We see a World Television title match between Arn Anderson and Hector Guerrero. A fast start from Hector as he nails Arn with a springboard crossbody and then another crossbody off the top rope. The crossbody gets a 2 count before Tully comes in and desperately breaks up the count for an immediate disqualification. Arn is holding Guerrero as Tully climbs to the top rope and they try to look to break Hector's arm before the Rock and Roll Express come out to make the save as the customary nuclear pop from the crowd ensues. Can't really rate this match because it is just a hot angle, and the match it was infinitely better anyway for not having Wahoo in it, despite being less than a minute long. But a full length match between these two is a must in the future, hopefully. So yeah, nothing more. A match that's nothing more than a facilitator for an excellent angle. Scott, what are your thoughts on this snippet?
Yeah, I couldn't really rate this. Like you said, this was more angle than match, but it made Hector feel like a legit threat, which I really liked, because I was like, oh, I thought this was just going to be a squash match. Finally, Arn gets a good match, but I also like the blue trunks that Arn had for this match. Had that written down, and I love that Tully runs in and it shows we got the Horseman history lesson earlier, and this shows that they're always running together, and Tully saved the title, and then R&R ran in, and yeah, it was a hot angle to end this but I just can't rate it with anything.
Yeah, that's understandable. I've not given it a rating, and Shawn hasn't given it a rating either. Just for note, Shawn didn't actually provide a rating for the last match either. The what match would that have been? The Arn and Flair tag match. He didn't provide a rating for that, but he's probably given 4.5 stars on it, and unnamed Impact Zone member probably gave it 5. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on Arn versus Hector?
Yeah, I couldn't get. I'm not gonna say. I'm just gonna say an NA, no rating. I wouldn't give it a dud or anything like that. But I like the angle. I like you said. Wow, you almost kind of. It's one of those things you kind of send the crowd home like, oh my gosh, we almost got to see maybe possibly Arn was going to lose the title kind of thing. And then, Tully coming in and make the save, and then R&R, it's just one of those, it's a typical Crockett way of just kind of getting everybody involved. And again, the Horsemen showing that they stick together. You may hate them and everything, but they are loyal to each other, and they make sure that they come home with the gold. So I enjoyed the angle part. Obviously, nothing bad to say about the match, because it really was more about the angle than anything else.
Yeah, and it's a good point both you've made. It's made Hector Guerrero look like a definite threat. That if you are watching it or if you're in the arena, as you said, Dr. G, that you're thinking straight away, Hector Guerrero within less than a minute looks like, if I see that Hector Guerrero is going to wrestle Arn Anderson next time that I am confident I'm going to see a title change at whatever arena that is sort of my closest one that I can see them. So very, very efficient use of the time. I think the clip on this one on YouTube is only about 2.5 minutes long, if that. But very excellent use of the time that they were given. So, as I say, that rounds out the Jim Crockett Promotions side of the podcast, but we do now close as with our customary territory spotlight. And this one comes from Continental Championship Wrestling. The 17th of May 1986 episode of Continental. It's a tag team match between Tim Horner and Brad Armstrong against Tom Prichard and Jerry Stubbs. So the video opens with Gordon Soley at the podium with Armstrong and Horner, and Soley says this is a tag match with 2 singles titles on the line, and somewhere a young Vincent James Russo's ears prick up. Armstrong calls out Stubbs by saying that he keeps wanting title shots but can't get the job done in singles competition, so is desperate for a tag match to try and win Armstrong's Continental Heavyweight Championship. So this match is a tag match with both Brad Armstrong's Continental Heavyweight title and Tom Prichard's United States Junior Heavyweight title on the line, where the beltless member of the winning team wins the belt of the title holder in the losing team. For example, if Tim Horner and Brad Armstrong win, Horner will leave as the US Junior Champion, or if Prichard and Stubbs win, Stubbs leaves as Continental Champion. I hope that makes sense. It was a bit convoluted in writing and probably explaining, but it is a bit more straightforward in practice. Maybe. So we'll see how it plays out anyway. So Jerry Stubbs calls himself Mr. Perfect, and I am immediately disgusted at that fact. Soley immediately confuses the situation by asking what happens with the belt of the losing team, despite Armstrong being no further than 2 feet away from him when he was explaining it not 2 minutes before the match. An interesting concept anyway, and I think interesting is probably the best way to describe it. There's a lot of stalling to start, and the action kicks off in earnest with Armstrong and Not-My-Mr. Perfect, who, to give him credit, is fairly mobile despite looking like a fatter Vern Gagne. Armstrong takes both opponents to Arm Drag City, then stands tall after Stubbs bails to the outside after a body slam. Horner is tagged in and is the victim of an attempted double team, but manages to reverse with a Hurricane Rana, which gets a 2 count. Horner stays in control and stands tall with some beautiful drop kicks, which knocks the bad guys to the outside again, and the crowd enthusiastically count along with the count-out calls. Prichard and Stubbs take control as Soley casually drops in that Ric Flair will be defending the world title next week on television. He doesn't mention his opponent, unfortunately. Horner gets a momentary hope spot, but it doesn't last long as Prichard begins to beat him down with kicks, punches, knees and elbow drops in quick succession. Gordon Soley is clearly bored at this time as he takes time to say hello to his granddaughter as Stubbs remains in control. Horner counters a telegraph back body drop with a kick to the forehead and tags in Armstrong, who comes in like a house on fire, to a nice pop. The faces take over, but Armstrong and Stubbs knock heads, and Prichard low bridges Armstrong as he tumbles back and out to the ground. Horner is full of piss and vinegar as he attacks Stubbs, which distracts the referee long enough to allow Prichard to hit a stomp to the back of the head off the top rope to Brad Armstrong as he comes back into the ring, which does enough damage to allow Stubbs to roll over to Armstrong and pin him for the 1, 2, 3 and the Continental Heavyweight Championship. This was my first experience of the Alabama territory, and I thought this was a very good sprint indeed. I've given this one 2.75 stars. I might go back and watch it again without having to take notes, just so I could get it all in one go. But I thought this was really enjoyable. Dr. G, what are your thoughts on this match?
I gave 2.75 stars too. It was funny we said about Gordon Soley. He must have been drinking that scotch in between, after they left the interview. But it was definitely an interesting concept for that time. And I guess, for the viewers at home, it could be a little confusing. But in regards to the match itself, Horner's, as I know Sean's going to laugh, is a good hand. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Again, not a guy that's going to be a champion, but definitely could go. And obviously Brad Armstrong, if he could, everybody said if he could talk the way he talked at the backstage, he probably could have been, definitely an upper mid-card guy for many years, maybe even contending for the world championship. But he never just put the whole package together. But very good in the ring. And, obviously got Prichard. I was like, Mr. Perfect. Stubbs, I was like, what?
I know.
There's only one Mr. Perfect, and it's not him.
I was not happy when I heard that.
I never knew there was somebody else that went by that name. Yeah, that territory, that continental territory, which Arn actually worked in at one time. He said that was his favorite place to ever work. Because it was not long trips, and you get to spend your days at the beach. It's actually pretty good, and I have watched some of their shows before. Some of their matches are pretty good. It wasn't a bad little territory. The Armstrongs, obviously, Bullet Bob and all that. That was the guys for that territory. The faces. I enjoyed the match. I thought it was, all things considered, I kind of looked at it on paper. I was like, is this going to really be good? But it was actually enjoyable. I'm 2.75. You split hairs. You go 3 on it, I guess. But I'm going to stick to my 2.75.
No, that's absolutely fair enough. As you're right in line with what I went. Scott, give us your thoughts to round out the episode on this one.
I went 2.5 on this. One of the things I noticed was the Continental ring looks like a Marlboro box for cigarettes. And that's all I could think of at first in this match. But, I've always heard good things about Brad Armstrong in this in his home territory. So it's nice to see him with that. He had some nice arm drags to start the match off. I even have here, Callum, Gordon got so bored he shouted out his granddaughter. And, this has actually been a fun match, which is so weird. I like the ending with Prichard getting the knee to Brad's head and Stubbs getting the pin. It was just a fun sprint, and like you said, this was my first time seeing a Continental match as well, because it's one of those territories I've heard so much about that I've seen very little. But it seemed like they loved Tim Horner and Brad, so and Tom Prichard, which bounced around a lot. We saw him in WWF. He's a trainer now. It was a lot of fun match. That's why I went 2.5 right here, and surprisingly, it was the best match of this first episode of our recording.
Well, I think I might go and do this myself. If you want to watch more Alabama, the YouTube, now I can't remember the name of it, but it was certainly the YouTube channel that had this show on it that we watched. Apparently they've got years and years of Alabama TV. Apparently the guy got permission from the Fullers to put it on. He's got a lot of the back catalogue, so there's a lot of Alabama on YouTube. So after watching this, I might take a dive into it myself, just to watch bits here and there, because this was a good introduction. Shawn went slightly higher than us on this one. He went 3 stars. Which Dr. G, you mentioned you were tempted to go there as well. So I think that's sort of 2.5 to 3 stars. I think is the right ballpark for this one.
Yeah, it really was, and I was pleasantly shocked after the duds, or even non-matches I've been forced to watch.
Yeah, I think this was. I wasn't hoping for much, so this certainly under-promised and over-delivered big time for me. But that match brings us to the end of this episode number 47 of NWA Crock and Roll. Dr. G, what have you got going on for the good people of the Place to Be Nation Wrestling Network?
Well, we got the NWA Saturday Special, breaking everything down as we head towards NWA 74. We kind of went on a rant about the storyline booking by William Patrick Corrigan himself. We didn't even break down this past episode that dropped last Saturday. We didn't even break down Power because we just felt like we had to go on about Tyrus facing the, Nick Aldis being taken out of the spot to put Tyrus in against Trevor Murdoch. So if you want to hear a good rant, take a listen to that episode. But our episodes drop every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And I could be reached on Twitter at Dr. G PTB.
I listened to that to this weekend's Saturday special on the way to work this morning, and it felt like an old school pandemic Power recap, because there was no Power to speak of, and it was just a rant about Billy Corgan's decision making. So it took me back. But you guys made some valid points. So it's the number one NWA podcast in the whole of the podcast sphere, but also very impartial. There's no you guys will call a spade when it needs to. If there's some bullshit that needs to be called out, you guys are more than happy to do it, and it was an excellent episode.
Thank you.
Scott, what have you got going on for the fine people in the podcast sphere?
Check us out on YouTube Roulette. We've been having a lot of fun with that. A new one should be dropping soon. Just check out all the pods here on, NoSo, Pop goes to the basement feed, couch feed. Sorry, I had a brain fart right there. And that can be found on Twitter at Scott_Shiflett.
Thank you very much, Scott. For me, other than this one, I'm taking Shawn's hot seat on chicken salad. We've just recently covered... Oh, what did we cover again? That's terrible. We've covered something bad. SummerSlam 95 it was. I'll need to edit that out. We've just recently covered SummerSlam 95 on chicken salad. I was also joined once again by Ben and Logan for the newest, for the episode 2 of Starflation podcast, which will be coming out soon, where we watch another. We actually go a wee bit out of our comfort zone for episode number 2. And the special relations will be due back in a couple of weeks as you're listening to this. Rory has been and done his life appointments. I can't think of the correct word. He's had his life events, and the band should be getting back together for that, for a very special reunion in the month of September. If you can put 2 and 2 together as to what that special reunion could involve. And as ever, if you could please like, subscribe or follow on the various streaming services, twitch.tv/PlaceToBeNation, PlaceToBeNation all one word on Twitter, at PTBN YouTube on Twitter, PlaceToBeNation all one word on YouTube, and Facebook.com/PTBN Live. It would be greatly appreciated. But after I stumble through my own plugs at the end of the show, I think that is time to call it a day for this one. So thank you once again to Dr. G and Scott for joining us on the journey for episode number 47. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time for episode 48, where we will close out May of 1986. And we'll come back with another territory spotlight. But until then, have a good one, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.